And if I refuse? I asked, already knowing the answer would destroy everything I'd spent 6 years building. Marcus's jaw tightened. Across the conference table, Diane Morrison, our earliest investor and the woman who'd believed in us when we were nobody, went completely still. The kind of still that comes before an earthquake. Then the board will have to reconsider your position as Chief Marketing Officer, Marcus said, his voice carrying that new coldness I'd only started hearing 3 months ago. And your equity vesting schedule will be adjusted. I looked at the proposal in front of me. Zara Chen's headshot stared back, all perfect skin and calculated pout. The same woman I'd hired 18 months ago to be a brand ambassador. The same woman whose lipstick I'd found on my husband's collar last quarter. The proposal wasn't just about making her the face of our brand. It was about giving her a seat at the table, equity, decision-making power over the company Marcus and I had built from nothing in our tiny Venice Beach apartment. Let me make sure I understand, I said slowly. You want me to approve Zara as Chief Brand Ambassador, sign off on her receiving 2% equity, and publicly endorse this campaign direction that abandons everything we built Catalyst on. It's what the market wants, Elena. Marcus leaned back in his chair with an ease that felt like betrayal. Our customers are younger now. They want influence, trends, accessibility. Not. He waved his hand dismissively at the mood board I'd created. Whatever slow fashion revolution means. I'd built Catalyst's brand on something revolutionary in Los Angeles, a city drowning in fast fashion and influencer culture. We'd promised transparency, artisan partnerships, clothes that lasted years instead of weeks. Our customers loved us for having a soul in an industry that had sold its conscience for next-day shipping. But in the past 6 months, something had shifted. Marcus started having lunch with different investors, the kind who talked about market penetration and viral moments instead of craftsmanship and ethics. He'd hired consultants who'd never held a bolt of fabric but had strong opinions about our Instagram engagement rates. And he'd gotten closer to Zara, who'd built a following by posting haul videos and get ready with me content, everything we'd positioned ourselves against. The market, I repeated. Or just the one person you've been spending every evening with. The room went silent. Diane's eyes flicked to Marcus, then back to me. This is a business decision, Marcus said, but his neck flushed red. Don't make it personal. You made it personal when you slept with our employee. The words came out steady, which surprised me. I'd practiced this conversation in my head 100 times, always imagining myself crying or screaming. But sitting here, looking at the man I'd built a life and a company with, I just felt tired. Elena. Diane's voice cut through. Perhaps we should table this discussion. No, Marcus said. We need Elena's signature by end of day. The campaign launches next week. Next week. They'd already planned everything. Already designed around my absence from the decision. I thought about the countless nights Marcus and I had stayed up sketching designs, planning collections, arguing passionately about whether sustainability could be sexy. I thought about our first trunk show in a borrowed gallery space, how we'd sold every piece and cried together afterward. I thought about the morning after our wedding when we'd woken up in a budget hotel in Joshua Tree and he'd whispered, "We're going to change everything." I need to think about it, I said. There's nothing to think about. Marcus's voice hardened. This is happening with or without you. The question is whether you want to be part of Catalyst's future or become part of its past. I met his eyes. 3 months ago, I'd walked into his office to surprise him with lunch and found Zara on his desk, her legs wrapped around his waist. He'd barely had the decency to look ashamed. I'd been frozen then, unable to process the betrayal. I'd let him feed me excuses about stress and mistakes and it meaning nothing. I'd believed him when he said she was just a symptom of his midlife crisis or creative burnout or whatever therapy speak he'd learned to deflect accountability. But this demanding I approve her ascension while threatening my position, this crystallized everything. Consider it done, I said. Marcus blinked, clearly surprised. Diane's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Really? Marcus recovered quickly, reaching for the folder. I'm glad you're seeing reason. I'll have my assistant send over the signed documents by 5. I stood, smoothing my dress. Is there anything else? No. No, that's thank you, Elena. He actually had the audacity to smile. You won't regret this. Zara's going to take us to the next level. I nodded and walked out of the conference room, my heels clicking against the polished concrete floors we'd agonized over when designing our office. Every detail of this space had meaning: the reclaimed wood, the natural light, the living wall of plants. We'd wanted it to reflect our values. Now it just felt like a beautiful cage. In my office, I closed the door and pulled out my phone. The message I'd been sitting on for 2 weeks waited in my drafts. 2. Diane Morrison's subject. About Paris. I hit send. 10 minutes later, Diane appeared in my doorway. She closed the door quietly behind her. "That was quite a performance in there," she said. "Was it?" I turned my laptop screen toward her. "I've already drafted my resignation letter. And the non-compete waiver I'll need you to approve." Diane's face remained neutral, but she sat down. "Tell me what you're thinking." "I'm thinking that 3 weeks ago you mentioned your friend Margot in Paris was looking for someone to help modernize her family's fashion house." I pulled up the notes from that conversation. Something about her niece running it into the ground, trying to compete with fast fashion, losing their heritage clientele. Maison Beaumont, Diane confirmed. 150 years of craftsmanship, nearly destroyed in 5. And Margot's willing to give someone full creative control to rebuild it. Someone who understands that luxury isn't about logo recognition. It's about quality and story and connection. She is. Diane studied me. "But Elena, walking away from Catalyst, you built this. That's your vision on every piece." "No." The word came out harder than I intended. "It was my vision. Marcus has made it very clear that vision is no longer valuable. And I refuse to watch him and Zara turn everything we stood for into just another influencer brand pushing disposable fashion. He's making a mistake, probably. But it's his mistake to make." I opened a different folder on my laptop. "I've been tracking our numbers. Since Zara became more prominent in our marketing, our return rate has increased by 30%. Customer complaints about quality are up. Our core demographic, the women who loved us for being different, they're leaving. But our social media numbers look great, so Marcus doesn't care." Diane scrolled through the data. "He hasn't seen this. I sent him this report 6 weeks ago. He said I was being paranoid and precious about the old way of doing things." I laughed without humor. He actually used the word precious, like caring about quality was childish. "What do you need from me?" "Your blessing. Your friendship with Margot. And that 35% equity stake of yours. I need you to not block my exit." "Elena." Diane set down the laptop. "You know I'd never block you. But if you leave, Marcus gets to write the story. He'll tell everyone you couldn't handle the company's growth, that you were stuck in the past. Let him." I pulled up a fresh document. "I'm going to build something in Paris that makes Catalyst look like a pop-up shop." Diane smiled then, the first real expression I'd seen from her all morning. "Margot's going to love you. There's one more thing." I pulled up the financial records I'd been quietly compiling. The books don't match. Zara's travel expenses, her wardrobe budget, several campaign budgets she controlled, the numbers are inflated. Someone's been skimming. Marcus? I don't think he knows. I think Zara's been funding her lifestyle with company money and he's too infatuated to notice. I transferred the files to a secure drive. I'm not doing anything with this information yet. But when it comes out, and it will come out, I don't want anyone thinking I knew and stayed silent. Does Marcus have any idea you're this angry? I thought about that. He thinks he won. He thinks I'm the same woman who stood there frozen 3 months ago, unable to believe what she was seeing. He doesn't realize that woman died the moment he chose Zara over everything we built together. When are you leaving? Tomorrow morning. 6 a.m. flight to Paris. I've already accepted Margot's offer. Diane stood. Then I'll make sure the non-compete is handled. And Elena? She paused at the door. Marcus is going to crash this company within a year. When he does, and he will, he's going to call you. I know. What will you say? I looked around my office one last time, the mood boards, the fabric samples, the photos of our first fashion show. I'll say I hope he and Zara are very happy together. That evening, I went through my apartment like a ghost. The place I'd shared with Marcus felt foreign now, full of memories that belonged to someone else. I packed only what mattered: my design sketches, my grandmother's sewing kit, the leather journal where I'd written every idea that became Catalyst. I left my key on the kitchen counter next to a note. Approved the documents as requested. I hope Zara is everything you're looking for. I've taken a position in Paris. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce. Short, clean, final. At 5 a.m., I stood in the airport holding a coffee I couldn't taste, watching Los Angeles wake up through floor-to-ceiling windows. My phone buzzed. Marcus, where are you? We need to talk about the campaign. I blocked his number. Paris in March was exactly as cold and gray as movies promised, but Margot Beaumont was warm in a way I hadn't expected. 70-something, with silver hair cut sharp and eyes that missed nothing, she met me at Charles de Gaulle holding a sign that said Elena Carter, Savior. Margot? I approached hesitantly. Who else? She kissed both my cheeks. Diane told me you were running from something. I like people who run toward me instead of from their problems. I might be doing both. Even better. Come, let me show you what you've gotten yourself into. Maison Beaumont's flagship boutique sat on a quiet street in the Marais, tucked between a rare bookstore and a café that looked like it had existed since Marie Antoinette. The building was beautiful original stonework, tall windows, a discreet brass plaque. Inside was chaos. Racks of clothes crowded every surface, clearly attempting to copy trends from Zara and H&M. Synthetic fabrics, mass-produced prints, nothing that spoke to the heritage Margot described. A bored-looking girl sat behind the counter, scrolling her phone. This is my grandniece, Chloe, Margot said tightly. She's been running things for 2 years. Chloe looked up. Margot, I told you, we need to appeal to younger customers. Nobody wants boring old couture anymore. Nobody wants poorly made copies of fast fashion from a house known for quality, I countered, running my hand over a jacket. The fabric was acceptable, but the construction was sloppy. When was the last time you used your atelier? The what? Margot closed her eyes. Upstairs. Where my father and grandfather actually made clothes. I climbed the narrow stairs to the second floor and stopped breathing. The atelier was a time capsule, vintage sewing machines, cutting tables, dress forms, walls of pattern drafts dating back generations. Covered in dust but intact. No one's been up here in 18 months, Margot said behind me. Chloe said it was inefficient. I picked up a pattern draft labeled 1968 coat, winter collection. The detail work was extraordinary. Margot, this is a goldmine. Or a museum, depending on your perspective. No. I turned to face her. This is your story. This is what made Maison Beaumont matter. Not trying to be Zara, but being the antidote to Zara. Margot studied me. Diane said you built a successful brand on similar principles. I did. And then I watched my partner destroy it chasing viral moments and influencer culture. I set down the pattern carefully. I won't make that mistake again. If I'm rebuilding Beaumont, we do it right. Heritage craftsmanship, modern sensibility, but no shortcuts. That will take time. Everything worth doing takes time. I moved to the windows, looking down at the street. What's your timeline? Bankruptcy in 6 months at current rate. Chloe's spending more than we're making. Then we have 6 months to turn this around. I pulled out my phone, opening the notes I'd been making on the flight. First, we clear out every piece of fast fashion. Have a closing sale, whatever. Then we bring back the atelier, start producing limited collections using traditional techniques. We market it as slow fashion luxury, the opposite of disposable culture. And while we're building a new collection, we tell your story. Every piece in your archive, every pattern, every technique, that's content. We bring in a photographer, document the atelier, interview the seamstresses who remember the old ways. The ideas came faster now. We're not selling clothes, we're selling heritage. Authenticity. The things people are starving for. Margot smiled. When can you start? Now. The first 3 months were brutal. Chloe fought me on everything until Margot finally bought out her shares and sent her to work for a friend's PR firm. I hired back 3 seamstresses who'd been let go, women in their 60s who cried when they saw the atelier cleaned and operational again. We launched our first collection in June, 12 pieces, each taking weeks to construct. Hand-stitched buttonholes, French seams, linings that were works of art even though no one would see them. I priced them at what they were worth, which made my financial advisor nervous. They sold out in 48 hours. I started getting calls from stylists in New York, London, Tokyo. They'd heard about the American designer who'd gone to Paris to save a dying fashion house. They wanted to dress their clients in something that meant something. By September, we'd made back 3 months of losses. Margot stopped looking worried and started looking proud. But in the back of my mind, I wondered about Los Angeles. About Catalyst, about Marcus. I didn't have to wonder long. In October, my phone lit up with texts from former colleagues. Someone had leaked financial documents showing Zara had embezzled nearly $200,000. Company credit cards for personal vacations, inflated budgets she'd pocketed the difference from, vendor relationships where she got kickbacks. The board forced Marcus to step down. Investors pulled out. Catalyst's stock plummeted. 2 days later, Marcus called. I stared at his name on my screen, remembering Diane's prediction. When he crashes the company, he'll call you. I answered. Elena. His voice sounded ragged. I know I don't have the right to ask, but I need help. The board they're talking about bringing you back as CEO. They'll give you full control, 50% equity, whatever you want. I walked to the window of my Paris apartment. Below, a couple shared wine at a cafe, laughing about something I couldn't hear. Marcus, I'm sorry about the company. I really am. Then come back. We can fix this. Together. No. Elena, please. I made a mistake. I see that now. Zara showed you who you'd become, I interrupted. Someone who values image over substance. Someone who'd rather chase trends than build something meaningful. That's not a mistake, Marcus. That's a choice you made over and over. I chose wrong. Let me make it right. You can't. Because even if you could undo everything with Zara, you'd still be the person who threatened my career to get me to approve her. Who dismissed years of my work as being precious. Who wanted to turn Catalyst into everything we swore we'd never be. Silence. Then. What about us? There is no us. I signed the divorce papers 2 months ago. Your lawyer should have told you. I didn't sign them. You will. Because I'm not coming back, not to fix your company, not to save you from your consequences, not for anything. I took a breath. I'm in Paris. I'm rebuilding Maison Beaumont into something extraordinary. I'm finally doing work that matters, with people who share my values. I'm happy. Marcus. For the first time in years. I'm actually happy. I don't believe you. I don't need you to. I looked around my apartment, small but mine, filled with fabric samples and sketches and the evidence of building something real. Goodbye. Marcus. I hung up before he could respond. Diane called an hour later. He reached out to you. He did. And I told him no. How's the board taking it? They're disappointed. They thought you'd jump at the chance to reclaim your company. It's not my company anymore. The moment Marcus chose Zara over our values, it stopped being anything I wanted to claim. He's going to sell it. Some fast fashion conglomerate is offering to acquire what's left. I felt a pang, brief but sharp, for the dream Marcus and I had shared. Then I thought about the atelier, about the seamstresses teaching me techniques passed down through generations, about the customers who wrote letters thanking me for making clothes they'd keep forever. Let him sell, I said. Maybe it's better that way. Clean break. You're really staying in Paris? I really am. I looked at the sketch I'd been working on, a coat based on that 1968 pattern I'd found, but updated with modern silhouettes. I'm building something here, Diane. Something that's entirely mine. Something that can't be destroyed by someone else's poor choices. You sound different. I feel different, lighter. Like I've finally stopped carrying weight that was never mine to begin with. Proud of you, Elena. After we hung up, I went back to my sketch. There was a fashion show to plan, a spring collection to finalize, interviews with magazines who wanted to know about the American woman reviving French craftsmanship. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Margot. The Vogue editor wants to feature us in the January issue. She's calling it the Paris Revolution. Should I tell her yes? I smiled. Tell her yes. But make sure she understands this isn't a revolution. It's a return to something we lost. A reminder that not everything has to be fast and loud and disposable. She'll love that. Also, I'm doubling your salary. Don't argue. 6 months ago, I'd sat in a conference room while my husband threatened my career to benefit his mistress. I'd felt powerless, betrayed, frozen. Now I was sitting in a Paris cafe, sketching designs that would be stitched by hand and worn for decades. I had work that mattered, people who respected me, a future I'd built entirely on my own terms. Marcus had asked if I was happy. The truth was, I'd forgotten what happiness felt like until I stopped fighting for something that was already dead. I didn't need to fix Catalyst. I didn't need to prove anything to Marcus or Zara or anyone else in Los Angeles. I just needed to keep building something beautiful, something meaningful. Something that would outlast the trends and the noise and the emptiness of chasing what everyone else wanted. The Vogue feature ran in January. They photographed me in the atelier, surrounded by vintage patterns and modern designs, and the headline read, "Elena Carter, the woman who chose legacy over fame." Marcus sent one final text after it published, "You won." I didn't respond. Because winning implied we'd been in competition, and we hadn't been. He'd been chasing something that glittered but had no substance. I'd been building something that would last. Those aren't the same game. 3 years later, Maison Beaumont has flagship stores in Paris, New York, and Tokyo. We produce 4 collections a year, each one limited, each piece taking weeks to construct. Our waiting list is 6 months long. I still think about Catalyst sometimes. The conglomerate that bought it turned it into another generic fast fashion brand. It'll probably be bankrupt within 5 years. But that's not my story anymore. My story is here, in this atelier, teaching young designers that slow can be revolutionary. That quality matters. That building something with integrity takes time but creates legacy. Marcus called once more, 2 years after that final text. I let it go to voicemail. "Elena, I wanted you to know I understand now. What you were trying to tell me. About values and meaning," and his voice broke. "You were right. About everything. I hope you're doing well." I deleted it without responding. Some endings don't need closure. They just need to be over. And some beginnings don't need permission. They just need you to be brave enough to choose yourself, choose your values, choose the work that makes you come alive even when it means walking away from everything you thought you wanted. I chose myself. I chose Paris. I chose work that matters. And I've never looked back.